There's a woman who started investing at 24. Nothing dramatic, nothing flashy. Every month she put a little money aside and invested it. She wasn't trying to get rich overnight. She wasn't chasing hot stocks or risky opportunities. She was simply doing what every financial expert tells you to do: invest consistently, stay patient, think long term. And for 3 years, that's exactly what she did. By the time she turned 27, she had built a decent investment account. It wasn't life-changing money, but it was enough to make her feel proud. For the first time, she could look at her account and see real progress. Then something happened. Her car broke down. Not a small repair, not a new tire or a battery replacement, but the transmission failed, one of the most expensive problems a car owner can face. The repair bill was far more than she expected. She didn't have a separate emergency fund, so she did what most people would do in the same situation. She pulled the money from her investments, almost all of it. Years of progress disappeared in a matter of days. After the repair was paid for, she started over. She kept investing, she stayed disciplined, she rebuilt her account for another 2 years. Then a medical bill showed up. Insurance covered part of it, but not all of it. The remaining cost was still too much to pay from her regular income. So once again, she went to the only place where money was available: her investments. And once again, most of the account disappeared. She started over. Again. A few years later, another unexpected expense arrived. And the same thing happened. By the time she reached 32 years old, she had technically been investing for 8 years. 8 years of discipline, 8 years of consistency, 8 years of doing what she was supposed to do. But her actual account balance looked more like someone who had started investing a year or two ago. Not because she was irresponsible, not because she made bad investment choices, not because she lacked discipline, but because every emergency in her life kept attacking the exact same account. If any part of that story sounds familiar, I want you to understand something important. This is not a story about bad investing. In fact, it's one of the most common financial mistakes people make, and it has very little to do with investing itself. The mistake is simple: using long-term money to solve short-term problems over and over again, because there is nothing sitting in between. Let's talk about why this happens. Most financial advice focuses on one message: invest early, invest consistently, let compounding do the work. And to be clear, that advice is absolutely correct. The problem is that most people only hear that part of the lesson. What often gets skipped is the foundation underneath it. Financial experts assume that before you start investing seriously, you already have a safety net, a separate pool of money designed specifically for emergencies, a buffer, a financial shock absorber, something that can take the hit when life becomes expensive unexpectedly. But many people never build that first. They go straight into investing. And honestly, that's understandable. Investing feels exciting, it feels productive, it feels like progress. You can open an app and watch the number grow. You can imagine your future becoming better. An emergency fund doesn't feel like that. Money sitting in a savings account isn't exciting. It isn't impressive. It doesn't create the same feeling of momentum. In fact, it can feel like the money is doing almost nothing, so people postpone it. They tell themselves they'll build it later, after the next raise, after the next promotion, after they start earning more, after life settles down. But here's the problem. Life rarely waits for the perfect time. Emergencies don't check your schedule first. They don't care whether you're ready. They simply arrive. Sometimes it's a car repair, sometimes it's a medical bill, sometimes it's a job loss, sometimes it's helping a family member, sometimes it's something you never saw coming at all. And when that happens, there's usually only one question that matters. Where will the money come from? If there's no emergency fund, the answer becomes obvious. It comes from investments every time, and that's where the real damage begins. Because the true power of investing isn't just the money you contribute, it's time. Time is what makes compounding work. Money that stays invested for 10 uninterrupted years behaves very differently from money that gets interrupted every 2 years. Most people think pulling money out simply slows their progress, but in reality, it often resets their progress. Imagine planting a tree. You water it, you take care of it, you watch it grow. Then every couple of years, you dig it out of the ground and plant a new seed. Technically, you're still gardening, technically, you're still putting in effort. But the tree never gets the chance to become what it could have become. That's what happens when investments constantly get interrupted by emergencies. Or think about it another way. Imagine climbing a staircase. Every month you take another step upward, slowly but steadily. Then halfway up the staircase, life pushes you onto a slide. You don't fall all the way back to the beginning, but you lose most of the progress you worked so hard to build. Then you start climbing again. A few years later, it happens again, and again, and again. After a decade, you can honestly say you've been climbing the entire time. but somehow you're still much closer to the bottom than you expected. That's not a motivation problem, that's a system problem. And that's what makes this mistake so dangerous. Every individual decision feels reasonable. When your car breaks down, using investments feels reasonable. When a medical bill arrives, using investments feels reasonable. When income suddenly drops, using investments feels reasonable. In the moment, it often feels like the only option available. That's why people rarely notice the mistake while it's happening. Because the mistake didn't happen during the emergency. The mistake happened years earlier, when no emergency fund was created. By the time the crisis arrives, the good options are already gone. Only the least painful option remains. Let's talk about something else. Many people skip emergency funds because they secretly believe emergencies are rare. Not impossible, just unlikely. Especially in the near future, people assume they'll have more time, more savings, more income, more preparation. But if you've been alive long enough, you already know something important. Unexpected expenses are not rare events. They're normal events. Most people won't go through life without emergencies. They'll go through life with many emergencies. The question isn't whether something unexpected will happen. The question is when. Once you accept that reality, emergency funds stop looking boring. They start looking essential. They stop feeling like money that's doing nothing. Because that's not true. An emergency fund has a job. Its job is protection. Its job is keeping chaos away from your long-term goals. Think of your finances as two separate rooms. One room is for chaos, car repairs, medical bills, broken appliances, unexpected expenses. That room gets messy sometimes. That's what it's there for. The second room is for your future. Investments, retirement savings, long-term wealth. That room should stay quiet. It should stay protected. The problem happens when both rooms are actually the same room. Then every unexpected expense walks directly through your future and leaves damage behind. Creating an emergency fund separates those rooms. And that simple separation changes everything. The next emergency still hurts, but it doesn't destroy years of investment progress. The next surprise expense still costs money, but it doesn't force you to start over from scratch. And over time, that's what allows compounding to finally do its job. The woman from the beginning of this story wasn't bad with money. She wasn't careless, she wasn't lazy, she did the difficult part better than most people. She stayed consistent month after month, year after year. Her problem wasn't effort, her problem was structure. One missing piece underneath everything else. A buffer, a small layer of protection between life's emergencies and her long-term future. And that single missing piece changed the outcome of 8 years of hard work. So if you've ever looked at your finances and wondered why progress feels slower than it should, ask yourself one honest question. When something unexpected happens, where does the money come from? If the answer is your investments, if the answer is your retirement account, if the answer is money that was supposed to stay untouched for years, then you've probably found the real problem, not a lack of discipline, not a lack of effort, a missing place for chaos to go. So here's the idea I want you to remember. Before focusing on growing your money faster, focus on protecting the money you're already growing. Build the cushion, build the buffer, build the emergency fund. It won't feel exciting, it won't feel impressive, it won't make for great social media posts, but it might be the single most important financial foundation you ever build. Because emergencies aren't guaranteed to destroy your life, but they are almost guaranteed to show up eventually. And when they do, you want them interrupting your month, not your future.